Good afternoon, everyone. This is Emily Saderholm at Woodford County Library, and I'm here to introduce a program today that is being brought to us by UK Extension. This is brought by Kelly May, and she's here to talk about budgeting during a pandemic. So watch for links below as I post them, and I'll let Kelly talk about her program here. Thank you, Kelly. Welcome.
Thank you, Emily. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully this goes well. All right, that's the hard part. We're ready to go. So I'm with Family and Consumer Sciences in the University of Kentucky College of Agriculture, Food and Environment. I normally work on campus, but right now I am working from home like many people are. And I was originally going to present this program with Elizabeth Coots, who is your Woodford County Extension Agent in FCS. However, she is now on maternity leave. So, congratulations to her. And I'm happy to take care of this for the both of us. But I do want to say that although I work on campus, I am a Woodford Countyan. I love my county, and we have wonderful services from the library to extension to other things in the county. So, I'm glad you're listening, and I hope you take advantage of those things, the many opportunities in the county. So today we're supposed to talk about budgeting. And if I can, there we go, get my screen to work. And of course, budgeting, like everything else, might be just a little bit different this year. I like that the calculator says 2020 because this has been a most unusual year. However, the process of budgeting remains the same. It's just some of the considerations might be a little bit different during a pandemic. So let's jump right in. Oh, first, I should mention that a budget is a step by step plan for meeting expenses during a given period of time. So, really, budgeting is sometimes also called a personal spending plan. So it's really just about taking an account of what you have, what's coming in, what's going out, and what the end result is. Do you have extra or do you not have enough? So we'll walk through the process and how to do this, and we'll give you the tools to write this down and be able to do it on your own. So first off, why budget? The big thing, especially right now, is that you can gain a sense of control. I know right now with the COVID-19 and everything that's going on, sometimes we feel a little bit out of control, and especially if our money situation has changed at all. And we'll talk a little bit about that. It can be a little scary if you feel out of control with your money or with other parts of your life. So at least having a budget can give you a sense of control, knowing what you have will cover what you need. And in that way, it can help reduce stress. It can help you keep track of your money so you don't overspend or go into debt. So it kind of keeps you in check if you pay attention to what you're spending and what you have coming in. It can identify your habits that drain your income. And it can, on the other flip side of that, it can help you find ways to spend less or to boost your income. It can improve family communication. So money is going to be spent whether we write it down or not. That's just the truth of it. So if you have a plan and you write it down, it can help you decide with your family, this is what we're going to spend our money on, especially on the bigger bills. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. And finally, it can help you build savings and work toward long term goals. So it's a great planning tool. All right, so how to go about this process? It helps to have a worksheet. You, of course, can just do this on a piece of paper. Any old plain white piece of paper with a pen or a pencil would work just fine. But if you would like to use our fancy tools, they are free on the extension website. And I've got a bit.ly link here, so it's nice and short. And I believe this is also posted in the comments area on Facebook, so you can pull this up. If you're able to do multiple screens, you can pull it up now, but you're welcome to do this later on your own time. I'm just going to go through the worksheet and how it works. You can see it's a 3-page little worksheet, and it's very handy, and it covers just about everything, and you'll be able to go back and do that when you have time to. So let's walk through it real quick. The first part of your budget is your income. And unfortunately, usually it's also the shortest part. Usually the expenses, which we'll talk about next, tend to be a little bit longer of a section. However, the income part is very important. So, of course, your income is what you have coming in, money you receive. This will include your wages. The gross is your total income, and the net is what you actually get to keep and use. So that's the total minus your deductions. So you want to use your net income for your budget. And most people do a monthly budget. So you'll notice on these worksheets, there are several columns here. So if you get paid weekly or every 2 weeks or monthly, you can figure out how much that is so you can turn it into a monthly number. So you'll notice at the bottom it says total income for a month. And that's what we're going to focus on. And then, of course, there may be other income sources. You may get child support or Social Security or unemployment benefits or food stamps or any other additional income you can think of that is a regular source of income, should be tracked and be part of your budget. And of course, with COVID-19, you may have faced some changes in your income. Hopefully not, but some people have experienced some unemployment or furloughs or temporary layoffs. So if that has happened, maybe you have applied for unemployment that you don't normally receive, or some other temporary benefits. So it's important to track those and know in your mind whether this, that you're listing on your monthly budget, whether it's permanent or temporary. Because if you are in temporary circumstances right now, it's a great time to do a budget, and then you may want to budget again after things resolve into a more permanent situation. So this is a good tool for planning when things are a little bit unexpected. All right, now we'll get into expenses. And I have kind of some rhetorical questions in here, but if anybody wants to chime in with something that's missing or something that is regular for you, you can. If you have questions, you can post those in the chat or the comment area, and Emily can relay those to me. So as we dive into expenses, this worksheet is kind of fun because it segments it into 2 different sections. And so on the first page of the form, you've got your income and your regular expenses. And on the second page, there is a section called expenses controlled by you. And I think that's an interesting distinction because these on the regular expenses page are the things that you're probably going to have every single month. And it most likely is going to be about the same amount every month. In traditional budgeting, we talk about fixed and flexible. And so your fixed expenses are the ones that are the same amount every month. That's usually like your rent or mortgage payment, your if you have a car loan, your loan payment. If you have your gas or your electric on a yearly payment plan, a lot of times that'll be evened out for the year, and then at the end of the year they adjust it one time. If you don't, that may change every month, and they call that a flexible expense. So flexible expenses change based on how much you use the item. So for the most part, these regular expenses that you have every month are mostly fixed expenses. Some may be flexible, but I got a little ahead of myself. First, I want to note that at the top of this little box of the form, it notes savings, and that is considered an expense because it's money that you take out of your regular budget and set aside. And so it's a wonderful thing to put savings into your budget. And I think it's wonderful that this worksheet puts it first, because that's a finance principle we call pay yourself first. And that means that if you go ahead and set aside that money for savings, you'll have it there when you need it, if you need it later. And so it's good to do that first before you pay everything else, because what happens if you don't? We pay everything else, we buy a few fun things, all of a sudden there's no money left for savings. So it's a great idea to set that aside as a regular amount in your budget and do that first. So we've got that savings portion first, and then we've got these regular expenses. And housing can be a big one. If you have an escrow payment, or if your insurance is separate for some reason, we don't have a separate line for housing insurance, but you can lump that in. If you have a homeowners association where you live and there's a fee for that, make sure you include all the things that go into your regular monthly housing payment. And then for these other ones, I think it's interesting that this, I think we put this out sometime around 2012. So it's not that old, but at the same time, things have changed a lot. And One of the things I notice is missing on here when I ask what other expenses do you have, a big one for us is internet. So we're working from home, we have to have internet, but we do our TV through internet now. There's a lot of things that happen with internet and phone is more than just a landline telephone. Nowadays, a lot of people have a cell phone. They might have a data plan. You might have a lot of expenses wrapped up in that area of telephone, um, cable TV, satellite, streaming, internet, all of that communication type section of your budget. So um, there are a lot of things in that regular monthly section that could be there, and you may not have all of these. You may not have a support payment to make. You may not have satellite TV or cable. You might just do streaming services, and that's fine. So make sure you write on what you do have and just don't worry about the things that you don't have. um, one other expense or thing I want to mention on this page is that I think it's interesting that credit card is listed here. And I think that depends on how you use your credit card. So somebody who has a credit card debt and is trying to pay it down, this is definitely the place to put it. You want to figure out how much you can afford to pay on that and work on paying that down. So maybe you have a regular, either you know what the minimum is, and so it's good to make at least the minimum. But if you can make more, go ahead and make more so that you can work on paying that off. Now, some people don't always use their credit card. So if you have it, but you don't use it, maybe that's not a regular expense for you here. Or maybe some of the things in the next section are what's on your credit card bill. And so that's okay too. So I just wanted to make a comment about credit card and how that might be different for different people depending on how they use it. All right, the next sentence on page, or the next section, sorry, on page 2 is the expenses controlled by you. And I love that heading because these things totally depend on how much you use them. Sometimes it depends on the season, sometimes it depends on the service itself, how much you're going to need these items. And you can change these by changing your habits. So I think I love that food is at the top because food is a big one. Groceries, dining out, school lunch. Also include all your snacks. The little things that add up, like a visit to the coffee shop, or if you tend to stop at the gas station or go through the drive-through for a little snack, or vending machine or cigarettes or any of those things that are consumables that you do. So we tend to think of the grocery bill because that's a big one. And if you have a regular dining out night, like say you eat out every Friday, that's easily accounted for. But what about those random lunches and the snack breaks that you take? So make sure you kind of take into account all of those, and it's better to estimate up rather than assume that it's not as bad as you think and estimate down, because that's how you end up running out of money. It's interesting that right now with the COVID-19, there might be some silver linings in your budget, in that while there might be problems in the income area, you might be actually saving money in the expenses area. If you are trying to stay at home more, you might not be driving back and forth to work or to other locations. So you might save a lot of money on gas. I know I have lately saved a lot of money on gas in my car. And also dining out. We used to eat lunches out while we were at work. Sometimes I would pack a lot of the time, but then sometimes we would eat out. And I'm just not doing that. I'm not going to leave home just to go out and eat when I know that what I have in the house is here and ready and safe, and I don't have to go anywhere. So that has led to a little bit of savings. Some personal and recreation. It's been interesting in that area with Emily and I were just talking about school and summer camps and childcare and things like that may have changed for some people. So I know things are a little bit different this year, and that may be cause for some savings. But again, like I noted in the income section, be honest with yourself and note whether this is a temporary change or a permanent change. If the summer camp situation is freeing up some money because the summer camp's not available, keep in mind that that cost may come back later when if there's a fall sports camp that starts back up, you may have that cost come back. Or if there becomes a daycare situation that you need to send your child to, that may bring that expense back. So don't get too comfortable with not having it if, again, your budget may change in the future. So you can kind of look these over and see if this covers everything or not. There may be some things that are missing. There may be areas where you spend more than others. You may not purchase clothing every month, but what a lot of people do is have a budgeted amount for clothing or furnishings, those sorts of things, so that likely if you don't buy clothing one month, you may buy more clothing the next month, or it may be a back to school time, you need to stock up on shoes and socks and whatever it is you need. So certainly at some point in the year, there's going to be something you need to buy. And so the idea is to budget that monthly, so you have a little money set aside for that. Okay, finally, in the expenses category, we've got these occasional expenses. And so on the budget worksheet, the first 2 pages, there's just one little box that says occasional expenses, where you can set aside a monthly amount. But then there's a whole worksheet to figure out how much that monthly amount should be. So this 3rd page is all about those things that don't happen every month. So maybe there's Christmas and birthdays and things that only happen once a year. But certainly you tend to spend some money on them if you're buying somebody a gift or having a party when we're allowed to have parties. And so that is something you can budget for ahead of time and then spread it throughout the year. School expenses are once a year, and then car taxes and other taxes. And then membership dues. If you have an annual membership, that's a bulk cost that's only going to come up once a year, but you benefit all year long. So those are some things to think about. There may be other things on that list other than what's listed here, and that's fine. And so you just kind of go across and look at, in January, do I have any of these things? I know when my birthday is, so I know when my car taxes are coming up, so I'll list that in that month. For birthday gifts for others, I can look at which months my family and friends have birthdays and plan accordingly. So I kind of know when I need money for these things. All right. So now that you've written all those things down, assuming that you're working on your budget here, the moment of truth is what I call this part. And that is when you summarize what is your total income and what is your total expenses. And so once you find that out, you figure out what's left. And if what's left is greater or positive, then that's fantastic. You're doing everything right. You've got extra money left over. You can do whatever you want with that extra money. It's a good idea to save it. But sometimes it's fun to play too, and that's fine. If expenses are greater, if you end up with a negative number, that means you have a little bit of work to do. So there's really only 2 ways to fix it, or here it lists 3, but 3 would be 1 and 2, a little bit of both. So 2 ways to improve your budget circumstances: to either increase income, decrease expenses, or do a bit of both. And it's good to prioritize your wants and needs. So people always talk about wants and needs. Which things do you actually have to have? Which things make life more comfortable? Which things make life more fun? Those are probably your wants. So you don't have to have them, but they certainly make life more enjoyable. And then the needs are the things you have to have. So you have to have shelter. You have to have food. The quality of the food may change. Hopefully you get good, healthy food like we talk about in Extension all the time, but the availability of the quantity and the specialtiness of it may change based on how much extra money you have to spend. And then let's talk about trimming or cutting. So a lot of times people say they're going to cut something, and that sounds so final, like you can't have any of it. You don't have to get rid of all of it. You can just get rid of some of it and save a little bit of money there. And so you can see these couple of links here. There's some other, I've included an article and a podcast that has more tips and information on budgeting during COVID-19 and also trimming expenses. But real quickly, a couple of places you can trim are I talked about communications. So I know nowadays we spend a lot of money on communication. So we probably have a cell phone, we probably have internet, and we probably have some kind of TV service in most houses. And it may be a combination of all of them. So it's good to think about if you have internet in your house. If you're able to use Wi Fi, you might not need to have a lot of cell phone data on your plan if you can use the Wi Fi instead. On the other hand, if you don't have internet in your house, so maybe you don't have Wi Fi, then you would need the data on your phone. But a lot of people might even have both. So, unless you're traveling where you tend to use data outside of your home, maybe you can reduce that part and use the Wi Fi if you have it. With TV services, I know there's satellite, there's cable, there's in this area there's the I call it the digital rabbit ears, where you can just plug in and get the traditional TV over the airwaves, the 4 or 6 or 8 channels that are available, um, which is great for local news and it's free. And then there's the streaming services that you can sign up for, all the movie channels and the Netflix and the all the different I don't want to name brand names because there's so many of them out there, but we can pay for individual services or we can bundle them up. And sometimes there is a crossover. So the couple of 3 channels will be offered in the same 5 packages. So maybe you don't need all 5 packages. Maybe you can reduce it to 1 or 2 or 3, depending on which channels are offered. So you can kind of look at um, what's offered in each package and if there's a way to trim that back and maybe get the smaller version, or one that maybe one bigger version that's more inclusive instead of 2 or 3 smaller ones. And then kind of inventory your house. I wish there was a service that told you how much you watched. I'm not aware of that out there yet. um, but you can kind of know which channels your family's more likely to watch, and if there's something they're not watching anymore, maybe you don't need to pay for that right now. So and you can use that process for any area of your budget. So I talked about communications, but you can do that in any section, whether it's food, clothing, transportation. You can reduce your utility use and things like that. So lots of different ways to trim. You don't have to just cut. Of course, if you can cut, you can. But lots of ways to save a little bit of money here and there. And as I've said throughout, it's a really good idea to review your budget. This is not, as we say, a one and done. So you don't want to do it just once and never do it again. It's good to do it maybe annually. If your circumstances change, do it more often than that. So if you're in a temporary circumstance right now, do your budget for now. And then when things change, do it again and see how it's different. And it's okay to reward yourself. So budgeting's not the most exciting thing in the world. I'm aware of that. It's not terribly fun. However, we can get a real good sense of accomplishment if we're doing well. And if you're doing the right thing, you can give yourself a little boost and say, hey, I did a good job with this. Let's have that treat now that we've been waiting to have. So and that's a good time to use your savings too. So maybe not all of it, but give yourself a little reward. So I can take any questions you might have and we can wrap this up pretty quickly. So I went awfully fast. I hope I didn't leave anybody behind, but the good thing about Facebook is you can watch it again. So that's that. I'll rest it here unless you want me to turn this off, Emily, and let me know if anybody has any questions.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. We do not have any questions.
All right.
So thank you so much for your time today. And we will keep this presentation on our Facebook Live for later, for those who would like to watch it later. And don't forget the links that are posted below for all the information Kelly shared. So thank you for joining us, Kelly, and we really appreciate the information you've shared with us.
Thank you, Emily. And I'm sorry Elizabeth couldn't be here. I am so happy for her and congratulations to her. And thank you, Emily, for inviting the both of us to come speak today.
Yes, we really appreciate your time and congratulations to Elizabeth. For those who are listening, we're going to have an announcement about the tomato program she was supposed to do tomorrow. Our staff here are going to try to make up that program. So we'll be making an announcement about that later today.
All
Thank
right.
you, Kelly, and we hope to
Thank
see
you.
you online again.
Oh, I will.
Okay, okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.